Hello, everybody. I'm Darren Gruber, the local sports columnist for The Record and NorthJersey.com, and welcome to another edition of Varsity Aces Live. And joining me this week, my dear friend and colleague, Mr. Paul Schwartz, and another good friend of mine, State Senator Paul Sarlo out of Woodridge. Now, Senator Sarlo has made plenty of news in the high school sports world in the last week or so. Hi, Paul. Hi, Paul.
Hi there. How are you? How's everybody? Hope everybody's healthy.
Thank you. You too, Senator. Now, Senator's made a lot of news in the high school sports world in New Jersey this past week with a bill on making sure that spring coaches get their correct stipend. And then recently we had a story just yesterday on NorthJersey.com talking about a possible proposal to, I guess, what you and I talked about it, Senator, like a gap year or a bridge year was the best term, to perhaps allow sophomores and juniors to take a year to go to community college, go to a New Jersey community college, and then come back and be eligible for spring activities the following year. It only impact sophomores and juniors. Can you tell us a little about where the idea for the proposal came from?
Okay. Thank you. Hello, Paul, my good friend.
Hello there, Paul.
Good to see you.
You too.
So Darren, thanks. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to be on. So first of all, I just want to focus here that this is an academic program first, and not an athletic program. There's an athletic component to it, a high school sport component to it. But first and foremost, this is an academic proposal that will give sophomores and juniors, who I believe are in their most critical years from an academic standpoint, especially those who are looking to continue education at a higher education institution, the opportunity to continue to further advance their AP classes, some of their STEM classes, and also help them at least drive up some of their boards or SATs or ACT. Some of these students, unfortunately, have lost that opportunity with COVID. Now, of course, if we go back to school, this proposal most likely would not be needed. If we do not go back to school, then this proposal would be something, if it became law, would trigger. And it would give those sophomores and juniors an opportunity to help drive up SAT scores, help drive up some of their STEM scores, and then further, if they were a younger student, help them mature even a little bit further and create a direct collaboration with our community colleges. A lot of that is happening already with dual enrollments, but we're trying to drive that more. So that's really how it all got started. With some discussions. Of course, me being a big high school sports component and feeling terrible for our spring sports, we all know, unlike fall and winter sports, spring sports, the recruiting process starts in your sophomore and junior year. I get it. It's summers and it showcases that really drives home the point to colleges. But let's face it, having a good sophomore, having a good junior year gets the name out there, gets you noticed. Clearly, it's summer, it's showcase ball, it's the tournaments around the country that will help drive it. But this will allow students who are also student athletes to give them that extra year of eligibility.
Senator, the biggest, I guess, I don't want to call it complaint, but the biggest question we heard in the last 24 hours is, why can't we do something for the seniors, though? I mean, we all feel bad for the seniors who may be on the verge of losing their spring season. Is it just there's not enough time to put all the pieces together for these seniors?
From a senior perspective, listen, I think every one of us, our heart breaks for seniors right now, right? It's an emotional time for them. They're losing their third and fourth marking period. They're going to lose their spring sports. They're going to lose potentially a prom, a graduation, award ceremonies, trips. There is a lot that they're losing, a lot of time together as a class, and of course that's emotional. However, though, when all schools in Bergen County went out and then across the state, at that point in time, it's my opinion and other leaders in the education world that at that point in time, most students already had a path forward. If they were going to be attending a college, their acceptances or denials were already sitting on the kitchen table, and mom and dad and them had to make a decision where the deposit was going to be going. Most of them were already in by early March. If they were going to go out to the workforce, or they were going to join our military, become a first responder, which I encourage so many of them to do, that decision was also being made. If they were an athlete and a recruited athlete, again, that was their junior year, their summer of their junior year, where they were making commitments, whether it was a Division III school or Division I school. I know there's some who make those commitments last minute, but primarily, a lot of them were already committed. So it's very difficult. They're after June, they were already gone to their next level in future endeavor. You have to take the emotional piece out of it for the moment. We're trying to take the emotional piece out of it and go back to making up for lost time and giving those who've been impacted from an educational standpoint and athletic standpoint for purposes of this show, opportunity and flexibility.
Senator Paul, I think it's a terrific idea in principle, and I think in practice it'll probably work for some people, especially the academic component. But obviously it's going to be a little bit different for a kid, for instance, the lacrosse player from Ridgewood versus a baseball player from Woodridge. They may take courses at Bergen Community College in Paramus. It's going to be hard for that Woodridge baseball player to get back for practice in Woodridge. It'll be a lot easier for the Ridgewood lacrosse player to go cross town for lacrosse. What are your thoughts on that? Because this is
so you're not going to. This is not going to be a traditional school year. It's a postgraduate year. It's a postgraduate year, so they're going to be able to schedule their classes. So in the fall, if they're training and traveling, if they're an athlete, and this is for athletes, of course, they can take classes as they desire. In the spring, they're going to have to schedule their classes accordingly to be in the morning or early afternoon. They're going to have some flexibility on that. They're going to have to sit with their guidance counselor and select courses that make the most sense for them.
What about the NCAA clock and the JUCO clock? What if I go through this process? Where do I stand like college eligibility wise?
So that's a great point. And I always go back to thinking about those families that are able to, students who go off to some of the postgraduate high schools like the Blair's Academy or the Home School or Pingree schools, some really great postgraduate schools. And I asked that question to some folks about how does it work for them? Because that's a fifth postgraduate year. In reality, they're not taking college credits. They're taking more high school classes, they tell me. So that was a little bit different. So here's how it's worked around. I was on a phone call today with some folks, and they advised me after having discussions with the NCAA that as long as the student is a non-matriculated student and is under 12 credits. So what does that mean? Could do 3 college credits, that's 9, plus a research, plus a lab, gets you up to 11 and a half. You can't hit the 12 credit threshold at any point in time. That protects all of your NCAA eligibility.
The flip side I would have, though, and the idea for juniors and sophomores, and you even hinted possible current freshmen would be under the plan too.
Freshmen will be impacted, and the Department of Education were asking for language that if this is a success, it's something they may want to consider for freshmen. Listen, they could continue going forward for academic reasons, not for athletic reasons, because this will be the request from the NJSIA. There'll be a one-time request made of them. And this is ultimately going to have to be voted by the NJSIA. It's a one-time request to waive the H semester requirement for these sophomores and juniors or freshmen if the Department of Education Commissioner opts in.
Well, I have two follow-ups on that, if I might, Darren. One is, I understand that circumstance, it's a one-time only deal. But what would happen to the next set of freshmen, sophomore, and juniors whose playing time would be diminished by the return of the fifth-year seniors to play high school sports? So that next group of people, in athletics anyway, would be impacted the same way this group is being impacted this year.
That's a great answer. A great question. The best answer I could give you, listen, I'm all about competition. And we all do know there are some tremendous young freshmen and sophomore athletes who will come on to a varsity sport, whether it's and we're going to just stay focused on spring sports, of course, but whether it's softball, lacrosse, tennis, golf, baseball, they're coming on and they're making impacts at a young age, regardless of who that fourth or fifth year student is. Are you going to see, do I believe right now that you will see wholesale groups of students getting together and saying, hey, let's do this to come back and win that high school state championship and take all the positions on the field. Absolutely not. There's going to be a lot of factors that are going to go into this. Some students are going to be just done with 4 years of high school. Some students are not going to want to pursue higher education. There are going to be some social economic factors for families to consider. Hey, this makes sense for my son. For $3,500, I'm going to get 24 college credits that then every 4-year state school in the state will accept. So it's a college affordability standpoint. There's going to be other parents who are going to walk away from it and say, hey, listen, my son is a recruitable already. He's already got offers and commitments after his current junior year, which would be next year if he was a sophomore. Or there's some students this year who have summer ball yet, hopefully. So do I believe there's going to be wholesale group of kids taking this? No. Do you see maybe 1 or 2 here? So to say that all the positions on a field are going to be locked up and locking out freshmen and sophomore, no. I think you're going to make it more competitive, quite frankly. For some of the smaller public schools, it'll make them a little bit more competitive because, you get one extra player, one extra pitcher, an extra hitter in the lineup. It's going to make them a little bit more competitive with some of their bigger components or even some of the parochials. So we shouldn't be afraid of competition in this world.
All right, Senator. This is an interactive show. Varsity Aces Live is an interactive show, and we have a question from one of our audience members. Mr. Miller, what's the question on the table?
Sorry, I was muted there. We have a question from Twitter. As people are just trying to wrap their head around how exactly this would work, at what point would a student have to inform his high school and college that he or she is planning to go through with a bridge year?
Gotcha. I'm going to provide a very detailed document to Darren. Afterwards, Darren, you could feel free to post that on Varsity Aces.
Okay.
It explains a lot of details. But to answer that
7
question,
days before.
it would be 7 days prior to your senior year. 7 days prior to your senior year, your parents need to notify that school district that you're going to opt in for this postgraduate 5th year. And on that 7 days before, it's where you were in. Whatever seat you were in as a junior, that's where you're going to be. So this cuts out all the transfers and change of addresses. That host school is where you will be as a senior and for your 5th year.
Hey, Senator, is there any special accommodations being given thought to a non-public kid who may be already taking like college credits some kind of way?
Right. So I would urge and encourage all of our parochial and private schools to participate in this. Of course, from a legislative standpoint, we can't require them. I understand it may be an economic for them because their students would not be paying tuition. They may be taking some college credits at another facility. I will tell you this, though. There has been a lot of excitement from 4 of our 4-year institutions. I have to give a shout out to my alma mater, NJIT. They're already thinking about how they could offer Calculus 2 and Calculus 3 in a high school that would take 3 of those 11 credits and offer it, whether it's at a parochial school or at a Bergen Tech vocational or in Paramus High School. So there's a lot of flexibility and opportunity here. And the more, listen, all we're trying to do is make up for a lost time.
So you're saying by that, I'm assuming that means that those credits would not necessarily have to be taken in a community college, just in a New Jersey Institute of Higher Learning. Am I correct?
No, 9 of them would have to be at a community college. 3 of them could be at another facility or institution.
And I have a little, a tiny question in terms of the eligibility age-wise. For the NJSAA, and I know you're on the executive committee there, so obviously they're going to be well aware, and they were well aware at the beginning of the proposal, and I'm assuming you've got the indications that it's going to be accepted by the NJSAA. But if you turn 19 by September 1st of your senior year, you're eligible for the entire year. But in your proposal, if you turn 20 by June 1st of the bridge year, you're not eligible. So there's a 3-month gap potentially between the normal NJSA eligibility and the bridge year.
Let me clarify that. The NJSI eligibility will govern in this particular. So whatever you've seen, the NJSI eligibility will govern. They must turn 19 after September 1st. No different than it is today.
No, but in the bridge year, the proposal I saw yesterday says if you turn 20 during the bridge year after June 1st, you would be ineligible. That means kids who were born in June, July, and August of their senior year would not be eligible for a bridge year, but would be eligible under normal NJSA rules for their senior year.
Correct. We're going to clarify that. It's going to go back. The athletic eligibility will be based upon the NJSIA eligibility.
Okay.
No waivers required from the NJSIA on that.
Senator, we have to give you a chance. You're a man of many hats. You are also the mayor of a certain town in Bergen County. Care to tell us where?
Woodridge, the best.
You got any way to represent Woodridge? Anyway?
Always have my Woodridge hat here. Always keep my Woodridge hat.
Okay.
Do you still swing every day? Are you still in the batting cage every day?
I'm doing the best I can by where I'm able to without with doing my social distancing.
You know, my friend Mr. Schwartz brought up the fact that you are a member of the NJSIA Executive Committee. You know, NJSIA Executive Committee they had the virtual meeting in April. Can we make spring sports work, Senator? Can we still fit it in depending on what the governor decides tomorrow or down the road? You know, can we find a way to reward the seniors? We said it at the top of the show. We feel bad for the seniors. Is there any way we can get this done?
Darren, there is nobody who wishes more that we could get back into school and allow some type of spring sport. I would love to take this legislation that I'm sitting on and put it
away. Yeah, throw it away.
And throw it away. I've worked on many pieces of legislation. It would bring joy for me to get the call from the governor's office saying we're going back to school and take this legislation and throw it right in the waste paper basket, because anything we can do to salvage and get our students back into school. Remember, kids out of school is the biggest disruptor in public life. We need to get the kids back to school. Is it going to happen? I believe. So let me just say, if we do get back, there is a chance we could salvage. I think the NJSIA has done a really great job of their executive board and their directors have done a really, really great job of getting information
planning.
About we could go as late May and salvage some type of season. So yes, we have an ability to salvage some type of high school season. You can't go any past June, because if we open up America and we open up and society goes back, you're going to start to run into the conflicts with club baseball and showcase and tournaments.
Yeah.
And then you're also going to run into football as well. So there's going to be a lot of conflicts. That is, of course, if we open everything up. You hear some of the medical professionals today and others, they're saying we're not going back to school. I sit here today with great hope that we're going to give our kids a chance to go back, and we don't need to talk about bridge legislation. Let's get those kids out there. Let's get those seniors out there swinging the bats.
Well, let me ask you a question. Obviously, we're all interested in swinging the bats. In my case, I love the track and field season, tennis and golf and lacrosse. So I understand what you just said about the end of June sort of being a barrier, a deadline because of upcoming fall sports and what gets done in the summer. But let me pose a hypothetical. What about if, and you're talking the end of May would be when you would want to open up if you could. So let's assume for this, we're opening up. Suppose it happens that on June 10th, we go back to being normal, okay? It's too late probably to open the school year. But what about the NJSA? Would the NJSA consider sanctioning a July tournament for softball or baseball or tennis or track or lacrosse that might not have the blue and gold trophies being given out at the end of the year, but would sort of count towards a high school experience for those that chose to do it?
Listen, that's a great question. I have great respect for the executive board. I can't speak for all the members of the executive board. I'm sure there will be some who will consider that. I'm sure there'll be some budgetary impacts on that too, right? There'll be some budgetary impacts. You know, where coaches are going to come from, what other commitments they have getting out of school. I think if you go past June, it starts to get into a little bit of a logistics and an operational standpoint. I think we should be playing, right through June anyway, and then go right out onto the club baseball circuit. I mean, on track and field, That would be, listen, for baseball and girls softball, it may impact. But I'm assuming from a track and field standpoint, July would be ideal, right, Paul?
It would be certainly for the sprinters. The distance runners might not be so happy, but the field event kids and the sprinters would love it. And, even though there is summer track and field, it's not nearly in New Jersey what baseball and softball and even lacrosse is, and golf for sure.
Right.
So,
listen, I can't speak for everybody. Listen, track and field, golf, you're right. Those kids do have the opportunity to get into a high school year. Sure, some will not opt in. Some are going to opt in to go on the other circuit, on the circuit. But some may opt in to continue to play. But I think logistically it'll be tough. Maybe you do it on a pilot program for track and field and golf. Perhaps you do it on a pilot for those two sports. See that, Paul? I'm watching out for you.
I like that.
And I'll make sure. And we'll make sure you get paid. Oh, you don't coach anymore. We can't make sure you get paid.
That's right. I don't need to. I'll get paid here by covering the kids.
Senator, we need to close things up, but we got to do some cross promotion because we are into round 2 of our greatest athletes of all time. Poll on NorthJersey.com for athletes out of North Jersey, male and female. And before we went on the air, we were grilling the senator for who he thought was the greatest athlete of all time. And he had some pretty good thoughts on the matter. In your playing days, who were some of your favorite people to go watch? Who'd you go see growing up in North Jersey?
Listen, in North Jersey, we competed against so many great athletes. And I was saying this earlier before we came on air. There's so many kids that I remember with such great high school athletes. Not sure, what they did at the college level or if they went on, but I remember as a young man getting up against Carl Stopper from Rutherford, digging into the box and him throwing, hitting 90 back then was pretty wild. Then playing with him at William Patterson for a year was, it was pretty wild. But on the girls' side, there was some great girls, basketball players. We had the Dressel girl from Woodridge. Was a great girl basketball player. Wrestlers. I think you document them well on some of the great wrestlers we had of recently, and football players. I do believe we at Bergen County we do it right, and our high school student athletes excel. So I'm going to stop short of endorsing anybody's candidacy.
I'm going to give you a player who's not in our thing, but he's a Woodridge guy and an NJT guy named John Porteous, intermediate hurdler. You must know the Porteous family.
I know the Porteous family, yes.
And we're hoping to do a little bit of something. I'm going to do it involve track and field of the greatest track and field athletes of history, and John's going to be in that one. So you might be able to be partisan on that one and support someone for that.
There's so many out there, and know what's great too. You see folks you competed against who went on, had great college careers, high school careers. Garrett Teal won, going on into the Dodgers organization. You see them all. It's just great to see folks you competed against, and then in different walks of life, whether they're still involved or not involved. Those friendships, the minute you see them, it goes right back to say, hey, you're in the state senate. You got a great business going on. And just for the minute you go back and you remember Woodridge playing Cresskill or Woodridge playing Emerson, and you go back to that game. So, you can't replace those. You can't replace those memories. And that's why I think all of us are sitting here today in our homes feeling for these student athletes. Of course, this is not just about high school sports. We have a national tragedy here. We have people losing their lives. We have people on ventilators. High school sports is not the driving issue, but we do recognize that there's a lot of people out there who are emotionally hurt by this and concerned and losing opportunities. So got to keep that in mind.
Well, Senator, we want to thank you so much for your time and joining us tonight on Varsity Aces Live. For my dear friend and colleague Paul Schwartz, and for State Senator Sarlo, I'm Darren Cooper. We are signing off here on Varsity Aces Live. Remember, let the players play, and the coaches coach, and the officials officiate, and let the Varsity Aces tell you what you need to know. Good night, everybody.